I've studied 3 university degrees over 8 years and I'm now a practicing medical doctor living in London. I've also built my YouTube channel to almost 200,000 subscribers and I've trained consistently for years and have maintained practicing the piano for over a decade. And none of that came from motivation. And if I'm honest, most days I don't feel motivated at all. And this isn't to flex or to show off. It's to show that if you learn how to stay consistent, even when life gets busy, stressful and unpredictable, you can do this too. And over the last few years, I've identified a handful of principles that makes this consistency automatic for anyone, whether you're a student or working full-time. So I'll break down 5 practical ideas you can apply straight away to make 2026 your most consistent year yet, without burning out or relying on willpower. So first, the biggest reason most people fail to stay consistent isn't due to a lack of motivation. It's because of bad planning. Most people set goals assuming every day will be a good day, where you'll wake up rested, where you'll have time and feel focused. But we both know that real life doesn't work that way. You have exams, you have busy and long work days, commitments to commit to, and low mood. And this happens more often than not. And because of this, because you set goals assuming every day will be a good day, the entire routine just falls apart. This isn't because you're lazy, it's because your system only works when the conditions are perfect. So the key idea you need to realize is that consistency doesn't break on good days, it breaks on bad ones. If your plan only works when you feel good, it's not a good plan. I learned this during med school and even now as a doctor. I still have days where I come home tired and doing the ideal version of my habits just isn't realistic. So instead of asking what's the perfect routine, I started asking what's the minimum I can do and still show up. I call this the minimum viable version of a habit. That might be reading a page or 2 if you're studying, or practicing the piano for maybe 10 minutes. For fitness, that might be just going for a short walk. For YouTube, that might be outlining ideas instead of scripting the full video. The idea is to do something so small that even on your worst days, you can still do it. And this matters because consistency is about identity. Showing up in imperfect situations to keep the streak alive shows you that you're still the kind of person who trains, studies, or creates even when it's difficult. Once you start skipping completely and start saying, I'll restart next week, that's when consistency actually dies. So if you want to be consistent, design for bad days, not just your ideal day. Because if your system survives those days, then it will survive anything. And this idea of designing for bad days doesn't just apply to habits like the gym or studying. It also applies to learning and building skills. And before the next point, if you ever feel like the day just disappears and you're not sure where the time went, that was me too. Even as a doctor, a productivity coach, and someone who has spent years studying how high performers use their time, I was still getting distracted, losing hours, and not making the progress I wanted on the things that actually mattered to me. So I built an app called Superhuman that showed me exactly what was eating my time, made me reflect on it honestly, and nudged me towards the goals I kept putting off. And it's what helps me manage working full-time as a doctor, running a YouTube channel, coaching, training, and still having a personal life. Superhuman builds a completely personalized productivity system around you specifically, your goals, your schedule, your distractions, your patterns. It gives you daily briefings, honest reflections, habit tracking, and high leverage tasks chosen specifically for where you are in your journey. And this means that as you progress, the whole system evolves with you, getting more ambitious, more specific, and more tailored the longer you use it. If that sounds like something you need, the link to download Superhuman is in the description below. Thank you, and now back to the video. And now the second reason most people struggle with consistency is because they rely on motivation when what they actually need are more constraints. And you can see if you're one of these people. Are you the type of person who wakes up every day asking yourself this same question? Do I feel like doing this today? The problem with this is that if your consistency depends on how you feel, then it's already fragile because motivation is unreliable, especially for the reasons I previously talked about, where you might be tired, where life gets busy. I realized this pretty early on during med school, and more so since I started working as a doctor, where if I left things open-ended, they just didn't happen. Saying I'll go to the gym when I have time, or I'll practice the piano at night sounds flexible, but in reality, it just adds decision-making to an already exhausting day. And decision fatigue is one of the biggest silent killers of consistency. Every extra choice you have to make is another chance for the habit to fall apart. So instead of relying on motivation, I started relying on constraints, fixed times, fixed places, and fixed rules. For example, the gym wasn't something I decided to do each day. It was something that happened at the same time, on the same days, regardless of mood, which for me would be after driving back home from work and before dinner. This was the same process with working on my YouTube channel or practicing the piano. When something is anchored to a specific time and place, it becomes part of the structure of your week. week. And an important point to realize is that constraints don't make you less free, because what they do is protect your energy. Because instead of negotiating with yourself all day, the decision is already made. You don't have to think about whether you should or shouldn't do something, because it's already decided for you in advance. And this is why consistency looks effortless from the outside. Consistent people remove the need to constantly motivate themselves. So if you want to be more consistent, stop asking how to feel more motivated. Start asking yourself, when exactly does this happen? Where does it happen? And what rule am I following, even on busy days? Because the moment your habits stop floating around your schedule, they stop disappearing. And now the third reason people struggle with consistency is much more discreet, but just as damaging. And it happens where you are actually putting in the effort, but you can't tell whether it's paying off or not. And the problem with this is that when you can't see progress, you eventually give up or stop caring. I've had this issue a lot in the past, whether it was studying for weeks without an end in sight, going to the gym and not seeing much improvement, or early on with my YouTube channel. This problem happens with things that are important, and it happens because your brain has no feedback loop. We need signals that tell us that something is working, that tell us to keep going, because without it, we doubt whether the habit of doing is objectively good for us. And it's why people quit right before things start to compound, because progress is often delayed, subtle and non-linear, especially with things like learning, fitness, or building something long term. What changed things for me was realizing that visibility is a big part of consistency. You need some way to see yourself moving forward, not to obsess over numbers or become robotic, but to give your brain proof that your effort isn't wasted. For me, this looked different in different areas of my life. For gym, this was tracking sessions and lifts. With piano, it was tracking practice day progress on pieces I was learning. Or with YouTube, it was keeping a log of the videos I made. Even something as basic as a check mark or streak can make a huge difference. Because over time, you'll see evidence that you're showing up, and that fuels momentum. One thing I'd recommend to help take this further is to do a weekly reflection where you ask yourself, what did I actually do this week? What moved forwards, even slightly? This is so that you recognize any small bit of progress, which is important to appreciate when you try to maintain consistency with something that you'll be doing for months and years. And now for the next point, it's one that's a bit overlooked. Even if you've committed to having the identity of someone who consistently shows up, your environment can make or break that consistency. And think about it, you might genuinely see yourself as the type of person who works out, studies, or writes every day. But if your surroundings are constantly pulling you in the other direction, it becomes way harder to actually follow through. And this isn't just limited to a workspace that makes focus impossible. It could also be friends who always cancel plans at the last minute, colleagues who distract you, or even having the wrong sorts of food. Even with the right mindset, you'll drift off if the environment isn't aligned. So your identity sets the direction. It tells you who you are or who you want to be, but your environment sets how easy it is to act like that person. And when the two are out of sync, you end up inconsistent. So here's what I do. I deliberately design my environment to reinforce my identity. For studying or working, I keep my phone away from me and set up a clean, distraction-free space. For the gym, I make sure I know exactly what I'll be working out tomorrow and what time I'll be going and how long the workout is likely to be, and track this using an app. You can also use digital or social cues. Online communities, shared trackers, or group challenges can subtly nudge you to keep showing up. The key is that these cues aren't optional and are there to consistently remind your brain of the habits you're trying to maintain. Combine this with your identity mindset as being someone who shows up, and you'll find yourself following through naturally. This stops you from relying only on willpower, as it uses your surroundings to your advantage, helping it do some of the work for you. People who seem effortlessly consistent aren't necessarily more disciplined. It's that they've aligned their identity and their environment. So those are 5 key things that will help you stay consistent in 2026, even on your worst days. But now a problem most people face is that even with a perfect system, the right identity, and the best environment, you can still put things off. I've been there myself, where I procrastinated on what I should have been doing, even though I had a plan and had the discipline. But over the past few years, I began to understand the exact causes of my procrastination. I figured out that it was more than just the typical distractions you might be thinking about, because it was a much deeper issue that caused the procrastination, and it's something that's very likely the cause of yours too. And in this video here, I talk about exactly how I dealt with and stopped this procrastination to get to where I am, and it will help you do the same. So click the video to learn more.